the one word that pops into your mind when I say budget. So while you're lighting up chat with the one word that you think of when you say hear budget, I do want to thank the Alumni Association for this partnership. We just love being here. And the slides from tonight will get sent out as part of the evaluation that comes from the Alumni Association afterwards. So if you're looking to get your hands on the slides, they will be coming. And then, like Alexandra said, please use chat, put in comments, put in questions. We'll take some polls. Polls are anonymous. There's no way anyone can know who answered what on those polls. Okay, so quick, Alexandra, what words did we get for budget?
Yeah, and this actually is another good point I'll mention. If you want to chat to everyone, feel free to do so, but since most of these are just coming to us, if you're not seeing them, don't be worried. But we got so a nice little scream, I feel ya, hard work, money, ew, no fun, responsibility, help, woohoo, adulting, what else did we get? Synthesizers, necessary, money, ugh, yeah, I feel you on that one too. Discipline, organized, that's a good one. Tedious, savings, confusing, mom. I call my mom about my budget all the time. Thank goodness for moms and dads. Great words. Yeah, thank you all for the participation.
Yeah, and it just reinforces budgeting means different things to different people. We have some who are just thrilled about it and some who are not as thrilled. So let's talk through our first thing, which of course is the agenda. How can you have a PowerPoint if you don't talk about what you're going to talk about? This is how we're going to go through the class tonight. We'll talk about why people budget, some basics about the concept of budgeting, and then we're going to go through a 6-step process. 6 steps you can take to create your own budget. Okay, we will cover challenges and tips because a whole bunch of us have tried this before and gotten frustrated. So we will cover some of those common challenges and some tips to get through them. And then we're going to switch over and talk about savings. I have found through the years that many people are budgeting because they're concerned about saving. And the two work really closely hand in hand. It's super important to have saving be part of your budget. So we'll talk through some savings things, ideas, tips. And then, of course, I'll challenge you with some action steps because what good is it if you learn things and then don't act on them? So that's how we're planning to proceed tonight. So let's start by thinking about why people make a budget. Some common reasons are to have control over your money, peace of mind. You may want to be achieving a savings goal. Sometimes people start budgeting because they're trying to manage a financial crisis. And, you know, I got news for you. COVID is not the first financial crisis to hit our lives. So plenty of us have been through some kind of financial crisis and it forced us to start budgeting. A common idea around budgeting is to tell your money where you want it to go instead of wondering where it went. It helps in communicating in a relationship. If you're in a relationship and you feel differently about money, it can be challenging, but a budget is a document, a tool to help you with the conversation or the feelings in a relationship about your money. And then the unknown is scary for us. And if the last 12 months haven't been proof of that, the unknown is scary. But if we know the situation, we're much more capable of managing it. So if we know the truth, we can deal with it. I don't know if anybody saw the recent announcement about a pro hockey player who was earning $7 million a year, and he's filing for bankruptcy. So his assets were around 10 million. His debts were around 26 million. He is certainly not the only person who is earning large sums of money and isn't able to manage a budget or build savings, which just goes to prove that it's not your income that determines your success with money management. Okay, if I was making 7 million a year, I'd like to think I would do that a little better. And clearly this gentleman did not take my class. So y'all can send him an email and tell him, yo, sign up for the budgeting class next time. We agree that there are lots of good reasons to use a budget, but how do you set one up? It's really important that you remember there's no right way, no wrong way, or only one way. There are some common steps and some common concepts with budgeting, but your budget won't be like anyone else's. Certainly not a pro hockey player. Okay, so everybody's budget is different, and it's not just because we have different incomes. It's also because every household has different priorities, different expenses, and different values. So I want to spend a minute on values because as we look at where your money's going, an overarching theme needs to be checking to see that your spending and saving matches your values. So a couple of examples. Some of us value good nutrition more than other people. Or maybe you have a special diet that you are required to stick to. And so your food budget, the part of your budget related to food, is probably higher than someone else's. Some people are very passionate about a charity or about giving. Some people are passionate about travel. I'm sorry, Alexandra, but maybe you have a pet. And so all of these things are going to influence, they're part of your values, and they influence how you spend your money and where your priorities are. Some people value the appearance of their home or themselves. Maybe you could care less about the size of your apartment, but you want to be sure to be at every live concert that happens in a 200-mile radius. And here's a big one. Do you have children? Those are all personal choices, and they absolutely are based on your values, and they are going to help determine how your money is spent. And as you look at things in your life with your money, try to make sure that where your priorities and values are is also where your money is going. Okay, so we have different incomes, expenses, values. We also like to tackle projects different ways. So although every budget needs a way to record your income, track expenses, and show the balance, there are lots of methods for recording those numbers. We're going to show you a variety of ways tonight to track your numbers, but the important thing is just to keep track. I do want to encourage you to be patient with yourself. It will take some time to build the habit of budgeting, and you want to aim for progress. Don't worry about perfection while you get started. Alexandra, I'd love to launch that first poll and see what people think about a couple of questions. If you haven't done polling before, it's going to pop up. You choose your answers and submit, and then we'll share out what the answers were. Again, no one can see who voted in any particular way.
And I just want to reiterate, we can't even see on the backside. So I know budgeting and money can sometimes be a private matter. It is completely anonymous. Also, great question in the chat. We will share out a recording of this webinar and the slides. You usually get that 2 to 3 days after, and it'll come in an email from the Alumni Association. It should also be available tomorrow or the next day on the Alumni Association website, which is csualumni.colostate.edu. We have about 75% of you have voted. We'll give you another 20 seconds and then we will share the results. Let's say 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. You should be able to see them. If you can't, feel free to let us know in the chat.
Okay, so yeah, we're We have a variety of viewpoints. Most of the people here sort of know things, but they're not rock solid on what they're doing with their money. And then we have a few people that are budgeting and some seekers. So that's awesome. We'll talk through all those scenarios. And spreadsheets win as far as the most common way to track, but we do have some app users. If you have an app that you really like, a budgeting app, would you put the name of that app into the chat? We'll be sharing those out if you have a recommendation on what has worked for you with a budgeting app. And lots of notebook people, I have to tell you that notebooks are still wildly popular. Young, old, middle, family, singles, I see tons and tons of people who use a notebook. It just works. So you little gray cell people, I'm afraid we're going to encourage you to switch tactics and not just keep it in your brain. But I'm giving myself away for the future here.
And for those who are in that little gray cell area, I'm right there with you. So we'll be doing this together.
So here's the steps we're going to talk through that go into the process of creating that budget. And we're going to dive into each one more in depth as we go. So the first step is to gather up your numbers, gather up your information. Basically what this is going to tell you is where you stand right now. You're going to have to pick a tracking system. We just talked about apps and spreadsheets and all of that. So you're going to have to decide what system you're going to use, and we'll talk through some possibilities. Then you take all the numbers you got in step 1 and put them into step 2. And now we're 1, 2, 3. We're done with 3 things already. The next one's fairly easy and straightforward, sometimes painful, but we're going to do the math and see where we stand. Now we have the truth. Now we know where we are in the moment. So we're going to come up with a plan for the future. And then the cool thing about budgeting is once you start, you get to keep doing it over and over again. It's not a, hey, I did that once. It's an ongoing lifestyle habit that you build. And so you have to keep repeating those steps month to month as you're entering in the numbers. Okay, and I do I hope that doesn't sound too overwhelming. We're going to go into each one. And I want to put in one really important comment that if there is more than one person in your household who earns and spends money, then before you dive too deep into the budgeting process, you're probably going to want to talk with them and get them on board. Because if there's 2 of you earning and spending and only 1 of you tracking numbers, it's not going to be as effective. So for the best success, you are absolutely going to need participation from everyone in the household who is earning and spending. And that's sometimes easier said than done, so good luck with that.
And I'll jump in quickly just with a couple of app recommendations. Thank you for those who did pop them in the chat. Sounds like Mint might be a good one. It automatically drops expenses into the budget, less work. Anything that's less work is always fantastic. And then Dave Ramsey 3-pack, including the Every Dollar app from him. So if you need some additional homework, check out those apps.
And we'll talk more about it when we get further into it, but thank you for those who contributed those names. And we will have a slide coming up where we dive into a little more about that, but thank you. Okay, so the first step in creating a budget for your household is to get your numbers together for right now. Where do you stand right now? What's going on in your life this month, maybe last month, okay? Most people build their budget on a monthly basis because there are many expenses in our lives that occur on a monthly basis. Our car payments, our rent, sometimes an insurance payment, the utilities come due once a month. So there's so many things that happen monthly that most people build their budget around a month. And as you're pulling in numbers, racking your brain cells, looking back through, anybody still use a checkbook? Looking back through your online statements, maybe your credit card statement, as you're pulling in all those numbers, don't worry if you can't find everything. Get as close as you can. It does help if you have a couple months worth, so you can kind of average them or guess it, at what those numbers might be. And then account statements, pay stubs, any bills you can find, invoices, receipts, even your memories. Anything that shows what you've been earning and spending recently. Gather it all up. Okay. Now that you have those numbers, you're going to have a place to put them. And this is where we talk about all these tracking systems. So some popular options are apps, notebooks. There are online templates. You can look and find online, a budget template. Alexandra was saying before that she went into Barnes and Nobles and they have all these cute, are they cute? Books, budgeting books. And back in the day, they were ugly, but now apparently they're cute.
They are there. I was telling Nancy just shortly before the webinar that the Barnes and Noble's budgeting section has quite a few. They're almost like designer planners. You can get watercolor themed or graffiti themed. So if that adds excitement to your budgeting life, Barnes and Noble is my recommendation.
And I will tell you, do whatever it is that's going to work in your life. And if it takes a cutesy $8 budgeting book, you go for it. And we have the apps. You can make your own custom spreadsheets. Spreadsheets were the most popular with this group as for the people who are already tracking. And there's no reason you can't start with one system and switch over to something else as time goes by. Learn how you approach this and see what's a good fit. One other one that I want to mention is the calendar system, and it's a little more high-level view. And I'll put in a plug for the Alumni Association. If you get your alumni calendar, it makes a great place to plug all these numbers in. But you literally, on the calendar in the block, write down payday, how much is going to be coming in, and when the bills have to go out. When is rent due? When does the utility payment happen? When is the car payment due? Whatever your monthly expenses are, plug them in there. When does the credit card come due? So it's a high level look. It's not an in-depth look. But if you haven't looked at all, this at least gives you on this payday, I have to be more careful because it's got to cover more things than my other payday does. Or I'm going to have to be sure to set aside some of my first payday, or I won't have enough to cover later in the month. Or however the month lays out for you, when you plug in, these days I have income, these days I'm going to have expenses, and I'm going to have to think about how to match those up. It's a high level overview of your month financially. Okay. And then let's talk about some other ways to get more detailed. Most people want to know more than just, this is the day I get paid and this is the day and the bills that are going to go out. So to dig deeper, it's kind of a matter of how deep to dig. In the example on the screen, it's just a calendar, or it's just a notebook page. I've created some categories, not a whole lot. I've created a place for my income and to write down under each category when I spend money in that area. So if I go to the grocery store 5 times, I need to have 5 little grocery store entries for food there. Basically, I'm going to create this document. I'm going to live my life and record my numbers. That's what we're doing. Okay. At the end of the month, you're going to balance out and see how you came out. And hopefully as you go, you'll get a gut feeling about whether things are going well or we need to make some adjustments. But let's look at a different system, same concept. This time we're using a spreadsheet. Okay. This time I have more categories. I'm digging deeper. So instead of listing home, now I am breaking out a line item for rent, gas, electricity, insurance, internet, phone. Instead of just saying transportation, I have broken out the car payment, the gasoline, the insurance, the repairs. So it's totally up to you how detailed you want to be. And if it's going to be too detailed and you're not going to do it, then go back to a simpler thing with fewer categories, but know where you stand. So it's the same thing. I'm going to live my life this month. I'm going to record my spending on my tracker, and I'll balance out at the end of the month and see what I look like. Let's take a look at a different one. This budget template that's on the page came right off the internet. Just search online. The books that Alexandra was talking about, they're going to have the same thing. They're going to have a page for each month. They're going to have different categories. When you create your spreadsheet, you can do your own thing instead of having categories you don't like on the page. But if you don't want to do that, find one that works for you. And again, there's so many different looks, but it all has to have the same thing. It has to have a place to put your income, to track your expenses as you go through the month in different categories, and then a place to balance the numbers. There's no right or wrong. You can be as detailed as you want, but I do want to point out all of these trackers have a place to record savings and a place to have plan for fun. Please don't cut fun out of your budget planning. It's really important that you include that as part of your life. It may not be a big dollar figure. It may be, I don't know. You know your life and your finances, but please have a line item for fun. All right, and then the apps that are listed there, Mint was mentioned. There are some other ones there. They all do different things. So I just want to stress, there's one there called envelopes, and that's going to be kind of like that old cash in an envelope system. And then once the money that you've allocated for food is gone from the envelope, then you stop buying food for the month. Your fun envelope, once that's empty, you stop having fun for the month, or at least paying for fun. So that's a very different feel from an app than what Mint does. Mint was suggested earlier. Mint is an overview of all your finances. You can put in multiple accounts, your investment accounts, your credit union account, your bank account, some odd kid account that you had from grandma. You can put them all in there, and it will, depending on how much information you give to it, do the math, show you the whole big picture of your financial life. But you see how that's very different than the envelope system, where you're doling out specific amounts of money for specific items in your budget. So know what the app does, know what you're trying to accomplish in your life, and find the right match. You Need a Budget is another one that gets recommended a lot, just if you're doing your research. So I think that's all I want to say about the different systems. So any questions that have come in, or should we roll on?
No questions yet, but at any point, feel free to pop questions in the chat, and I will either catch Nancy at the end of slides or just interrupt her in the middle. So just know that's an option. Actually, here we go. Are these apps free?
It depends. So many of them have a free version and a paid version. And some of the apps require you to start on a PC, and then you can get the phone app. Some allow you to have two people entering data into the same program. So the focus of tonight isn't so much on the specific apps, I'm just going to really encourage you to do your research and read the details about what each one does. And every year, gosh, you can just Google top 5 budgeting apps, top 10 financial apps. And the descriptions are pretty good. It'll help you sort out what the goal is of the particular app you're looking at. But yep, a lot of them have a free version, and then it's up to you to decide if you need more than that.
Awesome. And then this is a pretty common question, but I'm curious to hear your insights, Nancy. What do you think about the safety and security of putting personal banking info into apps?
Okay.
Giving you the hard ones.
So it's a very personal decision. I will tell you that I personally am not comfortable giving that information to Mint. So I don't do that. When I talk with my IT people or I talk to fraud experts, I get sort of a mixed bag of responses. Some feel like it's pretty good, and and some struggle with it. So we're really back to personality. What are your risk factors overall, financial behaviors? And I will tell you, I'll give away my whole identity theft class in one sentence here. It comes down to risk versus convenience. So you have to know yourself and know what's more important, that Mint pulls all the info in for me and is very convenient, or I'm scared to death of online things and I refuse to take any risky behaviors. And then there's obviously all kinds of things in between. But you can't have both great convenience and great security in the world of fraud.
Thank you. And then as a final question, well, I don't know why I said final question. As another question, is it better to just learn to use an Excel spreadsheet rather than an app, which will cost money over time?
Personal choice. Some people hate spreadsheets and hate math and can't set a formula in a spreadsheet to make it be accurate to save their life. So they're going to be better off with a notebook. Some people want the cool app. That's just how they function. The thought of getting out a pen and paper is going to drive them insane. It's up to you.
A lot of preferences. And then this one's actually just another suggestion from someone watching, so thank you. There's also an app called Buddy, and it has a pink piggy bank as an icon. It's free and works with your iWatch. So for our Apple friends watching, one of your fellow attendees suggests Buddy, B-U-D-D-Y.
Awesome.
But great questions all around. Thank you all. Keep them coming.
Yeah, and thank you so much for contributing what's working for you. Again, there's so many options. And it's so helpful when someone's actually experienced it. So thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, hey, we're on step 4 already out of our six. Oh no, we're on step 3, sorry. Okay, we gathered our numbers. We picked our tracking system. Hey, step 3 is a piece of cake. You plug it in. You know, you got these numbers. This is how much your rent is. This is how much income you have. This is what the car payment is. This is, I bought gas 5 times and it was this much each time. So plug them into your system and there you go. Now you know, now you know what today is like, okay? So we put the information into the tracking system. Now we do the math, okay? It's pretty straightforward. Income minus expenses equals your monthly balance. And, you know, regardless of whether the number's positive or negative, at least now you know the truth. And your next step is to make a plan. So I sometimes get asked about when they're putting numbers in, do you use gross income or net income? And I'm curious, for those of you who budget, put into chat whether you're a gross income or net income person on your budget tracker. The most common answer, without a doubt, is net. So in other words, the smaller number, what actually shows up in your checking account on payday. I am a gross person. I like to know what came out of my check before it arrived in my account. So it's a little more work, but I have a better overall picture of my true costs for the month. But I'm sort of a sophisticated budgeter. If you're getting started, most people choose net. Alexandra, what did we get?
I will say you are alone in that gross income. We've got net income, net income after taxes and deductions, and actually a question about that as well. How do you account for taxes if you do gross income? So I don't know if you want to touch on that.
So yeah, my system's pretty straightforward. I have my gross income, and then I pull out on my as an expense on my tracker what my taxes were and what my 401 contribution is and what my health insurance is. I pull those things out and put it on my tracker. So I think the only reason to, there is no problem using net. Net is just fine. just in your head, don't forget that you have those other expenses. And the other thing I've seen happen with a sort of a problem with net is if for any reason you have like a company cafeteria, or you do charitable giving through work, or you have the ability to buy corporate wear through work or something like that, that money disappears out of your paycheck before it goes into your bank account. And it is very possible that you're spending a ton at the cafeteria and you have no idea. So simple things like that, it's at least worth a look at your paycheck. What does come out that I should actually be aware of before it hits my account? Okay, I don't want to get hung up on gross and net. Most important thing is to record it and put it in there and do it. Yeah. Anything else before we move on?
Just a couple of fun little comments. Someone said gross is way too confusing. So if that's you or you're feeling that way as well, I think the biggest thing is just to be aware of those little things Nancy just mentioned. A good idea to keep track of gross income. There can be errors. I think I smile because I think what budgeting comes down to is so much preference, and you can really see how it's unique to everyone. So
And
thanks
if
for
gross is
thinking through with us.
confusing, don't do it. Don't do it. It is more numbers. It is more stuff. So yeah.
This is an interesting question, Nancy. What about money that's given to you for like birthday or holiday? How would you go about counting that? Should it be counted?
So I do.
Tips,
Mhm,
tricks?
absolutely. Other income. So do you have birthday money, tax refund? Did you get a rebate on something? Oh my gosh, yeah. Did somebody give you $100 of gift cards? So you're going to have to decide how detailed you want to be. I don't track gift cards so much, but I do track if somebody gave me cash. My kids pay me, for the phone bill thing. So every month I record that they gave me a really pittance amount of money. And so sometimes once a quarter, I get some odd payment from some old stock somewhere. I mean, random $70 shows up. Yeah, I keep track of all that. Um, it's not as critical as your paycheck, but if it's very regular, yeah, absolutely. And then I'm going to say this later, but have a plan for that stuff. If you know that you're going to get a tax refund, oh, please don't let that tax refund just drift into your life and drift out again. Have a plan ahead of time. What am I going to do with that chunk of money? Think about what you want to accomplish with it. Same thing with birthdays. If you know that you regularly get a nice chunk of money at your birthday, have a plan. What am I going to do? And I don't care if you're going to have fun. That's great. But is that all you want to do? If you think about it ahead of time, you can make it do what you want. Okay. Rolling on. Look at that. We're up to step 5. Woo, we did the math. Okay. You have been brave. You have been honest. You looked at your final financial picture. And now you can make a plan for your future. So here are some potential things that you could do based on what you learned from doing the math. One of the first things is simply by tracking, most people notice something that they want to change. Just the act of tracking their expenses, something pops out, they go, wow, I haven't used that membership for months. They have an aha moment of, I spend that much eating out? Maybe they had no idea that utilities might just automatically get paid out. You've set up auto pay on that and you haven't looked at it for months. And now you look at your utility cost and you're like, wow, I'm not happy about that. So it could be anything on your tracker, but it's very possible that something will jump out at you as not matching your values, not being what you want your money to do. So that's our first thing was there something that just jumped out at you? I don't like this. I'm going to change this. Okay. Now, if you find that you have money left over, awesome. I'm going to say it again, come up with a plan for it. If, again, so even if it's, 20 bucks, 50 bucks, if you're consistently month to month have extra money, decide what you want to do with that. Some possibilities are to increase your emergency savings. Maybe you have a debt that you'd like to spend extra to reduce. Maybe there's a special event coming up and you're like, well, I didn't think I could do that special event, but seriously, I have $25 every month. And if I set it aside, I can make that happen. Maybe you want to increase your donations. Maybe you thought, I'd like to give charity donations, but I don't think I can afford it. Maybe you can. And then another one we see for those of us who aren't young alumni is increasing our retirement savings. So those are some real common ways people think about what to do with extra money that they discover in their month. What if there's a shortage? So there are a couple ways to solve a shortage. No big surprise here. We're going to take a look at the options if in fact you're coming up with more month than money. It's not rocket science, but you can increase income, you can decrease spending, or you can do both. That's it. That's what we've got to work with in this kind of painful part of the process here. So some ideas to increase income are to consider taking a part-time job or a side hustle. For a lot of people, they can do that for 6 months, take care of some situation and walk away from that extra effort. Another thing that is commonly done is to sell unused things. A lot of people have a storage unit. Reconsider whether you could sell those things and get rid of the payment for the storage unit, plus have the income from selling things. Sometimes people rent out a room. It can be a short-term thing instead of, a long-term, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a roommate for the rest of my life. And then with more time on your hands, you could look at adding work skills or credentials or switching jobs, something to boost your earnings. But in the short term, is there something you can do just to raise some cash quick and get out of a shortfall? The other thing, of course, is to decrease spending. And if you've tracked your spending, you'll probably find some things that can be cut back. Now, a lot of times those are smaller amounts, which when you put them all together is real helpful. But if your monthly shortage is a real big one, it might be that you have to consider downsizing your home or your vehicle, some big payment in your life. It's also really important to review your debt payments, because there are a ton of ways to refinance or consolidate or realign, but to change up your debt and save a lot of money. So at the credit union, we see this all the time. Existing debt can be rearranged and literally opens up hundreds of dollars a month in your budget. So we'd be happy to talk more about some techniques on that later. I don't want to take time right now, but if you're curious about techniques on rearranging debt, put that into chat. We'll talk about it at the end. It can be done. There's some very interesting and creative ways to rearrange the debt you have. Okay. And then, the third option, of course, is to combine those things, both sell some stuff, raise a little extra money with a side hustle job, and stop eating out 3 times a week, eat out once a week. We're going to combine all the techniques. So those are the things you're going to look at once you get into, I've balanced out, I've looked at my money, I'm consistently over, under, what am I going to do? What's my plan? So the last step in this budgeting process is just to keep repeating that process. Basically, after a month or two, you're going to see trends, you're going to see averages, you're going to see where you consistently stand. You're going to go, yep, this is great. This matches my life. I'm keeping this. And you're going to go, I got to change that. And you'll change it. Depending on the situation, it may be a lifelong change, or it may be a 6-month change. And then boom, you can get back to something that you love doing. Got to look at the truth. Figure out what you're comfortable with. Come up with a plan for how you're going to have your money go in and out of your life. News for you, news flash. Life happens, life changes. Sometimes it's great. We get married, we have babies. Sometimes it's not so great. We have a divorce, we have a death. Maybe we get a promotion, maybe we lose a job. All the things in our life are going to impact our money. I can't stress enough that when something changes in your life, financially, having a budget already in place, knowing your tracking system already, you'll be able to react so much quicker. You'll know where you stand. You'll see a path forward. This is what I have to do. And it's already all there, ready to go. You aren't going to have to go through all this process to figure out where you stand because you know where you stand. All right. I think I saw some questions coming in.
We did have a handful of people who want more information on rearranging debt. I do have your name, so we'll follow up with additional information. And then we'll also provide my contact info and Nancy's contact info and follow up after tonight. So if you do want to reach out at any point and didn't pop it in the chat, no, that's an option as well.
All right, and Alexandra, don't let me forget, we'll talk about it tonight. If we can get through the slides and finish up on the budgeting and saving part, we'll go back and talk about restructuring debt and some of those options that are available. Okay.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay. I hope you're feeling better. I don't know about good, but about the idea of a budget. And I hope you realize that it still takes a little practice. We're going to keep trying this for several months and work it out. You know, I haven't said that you should on your tracker say, my food budget is this dollar figure. My clothing budget is this dollar figure. I think you'll find those things will fall into place as you're doing your tracking. And what you'll do is go, whoa, I normally spend this much and I'm way over. Or I normally spend this much and I'm not. So boy, next month we're going to have a wing-ding vacation, you know. So it's up to you if you want to assign dollar figures. For me, the most important thing is you know where your money's going. And every month you're looking at, yeah, I came out ahead. I'm okay. Or it was a rough month, so next month we're going to tweak some things. Okay, so I do want to cover some challenges because most of us have tried this and run into things that make it troublesome, that those words you had at the beginning about you and ick and all of that. So let's talk through some common things that come up. One possible challenge to successful budgeting is that you hate math and you hate spreadsheets. So is there any hope for having a budget? I'm going to suggest a couple of things. The first plan that I'm going to talk through requires minimal calculations. There's still some tracking in that, but basically you're looking at your income and then you're going to, from that amount, subtract out needs. You have to eat and you have to buy gas for the car and you have to pay your insurance and your rent and your utilities. What are the needs that must come out of there? After you subtract that out, you're going to take out 20% for savings. Okay, and this is where I like to say 20% of gross, 20% of the big number. And don't forget, you can include your 401 or your retirement money that's coming out. This is all your savings. So do you have emergency savings? Do you have retirement money? Do you have a health savings account? This is money you're not spending right now. You're setting it aside for savings. Okay, you started with your income. You took out all the needs that you have. Then you took out 20% for savings. And now you're going to live on what's left. Those are the wants. That's your entertainment, pets, vacations, hobbies. Okay, so there's a little bit of math there, but maybe that helps simplify the thought for you. Here's an even simpler way. If you take your income and you subtract out 20% for savings, just go live on the rest. Honestly, If you are saving 20% of your gross income, you are not spending it. It's going into emergency savings. It's going into retirement. It's going into a college fund for your kid. It's going into your health savings account. If you are saving 20% of your gross income, you can probably live on the rest in financial health. And so that's the really, really low math way to go about this. Okay. A lot of people, when they hear that kind of simple system are all freaked out. It's like, no, I've got to know more. I want more detail. That's not good for me. So this is a solution for people who hate math and aren't going to do the math and aren't going to track it and aren't going to be in a spreadsheet. Save 20% of your gross income.
And as a clarification question there, can you count money that's automatically going into retirement as part of that 20%?
Yes. So again, 20% of your gross income being set aside in savings, you are not spending that money today. So it might be for a new car purchase. It might be tires, it might be holiday fund, it might be vacation, it might be emergency fund, it's retirement, it's your college savings for your kids. You are not spending that money today. You have set it aside for a particular thing in the future. Okay. So again, a ton of people can't handle that thought. That is not how they think of a budget. That is not what they want to do. This is for you people who hate math and are simply not going to do it any other way. This is a way to have a financial stability in your life. Okay. So let's address a couple other challenges that come up. Those systems, just for a lot of people, don't tell you enough. Okay. Again, there's no right or wrong on how complicated you go, but this is a decision you're going to have to make is, do I say my line item in my budget is food, or do I spell it eating in, eating out? Coffee. How detailed do you want to go? Do you want to just have a category that's personal and it's going to include so many things? Or do you actually want to know how much you're spending on haircuts and clothing and your pets and gifts for birthday parties, if you have kids, and donations? And so do you see, it's totally up to you how detailed you go on these, but this is a decision you'll need to make. And sometimes people get freaked out having all those categories and they need to make it simpler. So whatever's right for you. Here's a different challenge. What if you and your partner, your spending partner, do go about things different ways? So you only spend on the credit card, he uses cash, and it just disappears and you have no idea where it's gone, what it was for. So you're going to have to talk and you're going to have to come up with, the cash spender is going to have to get receipts or write things down or take pictures or communicate in some way where that cash is going. The opposite problem happens when you spend on a credit card and you don't take care of the tracking sort of right away. 6 weeks after you spent $120 at Target, you look at your account and go, oh yeah, what was that for? I mean, because a place like Target, right, it could be for groceries or a birthday gift or furniture or clothing or some of everything. And if you're tracking those different categories, looking at the account and going, I spent $120 at Target, doesn't tell you what you want to know. So you're going to need to make some notes along the way, or you're going to need to track it right away. So here's another challenge. How often do I do this? A lot of people just enter their income on payday is when it goes in. And income's straightforward. It's pretty easy. We have those random other incomes, but for the most part, that's pretty easy. It's the spending, because it happens for a lot of people every day. And there's so many different ways we can spend. We've got cash and checks and credit cards and debit cards and Venmo and Apple Pay. And, it's a little overwhelming, gift cards, and it's just crazy. So waiting too long makes it more challenging to remember what you spent or to remember what this was for. It was $120, but I can't remember what I bought with it. So it usually falls into a weekly recording or a bi-weekly recording where you're entering these things in your system. If we wait for a month to go by, it's just too long. Okay. Those were some challenges and some ways to overcome them. I was going to transition over and talk about savings. So I'm curious if you have other questions about budgeting. I'm leaving a lot of this up to you and what's right for you, what system you use, how often you write it down. Do you have a conversation with somebody else? I'm not telling you that your food budget has to be 25%. I'm saying what's right for you. And as long as you're not spending more than you're making and you're comfortable with the options, you've got a budget that you can live with and that will be there if trouble comes. You can look at it immediately and go, here's what I'm going to do. Okay. I'm going to like count to 10 or something. What other questions? Anything?
It's not looking like it, but I will interrupt you if anyone has a spark or flash of genius halfway through the next section.
All right. Well, I like talking about savings better than I like talking about budgeting. So we'll end on a slightly more positive note, but one of the reasons people budget is to make sure they're saving. And we have seen the importance of savings demonstrated during this pandemic. The people who had savings rode out the crisis better. Fascinating side note, our savings rate in the US skyrocketed. We were saving about 3%. In March, we saved 33% of our disposable income. We went from 3, I think it was April actually, from 3 to 33% of our income, our disposable income was being saved. So pandemic shook some people and they saw the need to stash some cash away. Great. Let's make it a lifestyle instead of a reaction to a pandemic. So why do we save? Well, we save for good stuff, plans, vacations, weddings, and we save because life happens and bad things happen and we have to cover them. So we're saving for both good things and challenges, unknown things coming. And another reason to save is that if we don't have that savings option to go to, the other ways we can cover a problem are usually credit cards and asking our relatives for a loan. And I don't know about you, but those are both pretty uncomfortable. Credit cards have an extremely high interest rate and relatives are relatives. So, so we don't know what's coming. We don't know that when something will arise, but something will arise that we need to cover. So let's launch poll number 2 and see what these people think about a couple things.
And while you all vote, I'm going to ask you a question, Nancy, somewhat along the lines of savings. What would you recommend putting into retirement at work? This person has heard 15%, but what if that's not an option?
Yeah, so retirement savings are also very personal. With a work situation, if there's a match involved, if at all possible in your life, maximize the match. Take advantage of what the employer is offering to give you. Beyond that, it's going to depend on what your other obligations are in the moment, because it does no good to save for retirement if you can't fix the water heater tomorrow. So we have to balance emergency savings with our future retirement savings. Both are important, but there is no percentage that's right for everyone. And the only thing I'll say is if there's a match available from that employer, boy, take advantage of that because that's free money coming to you. Starting young is really helpful, but all of these are personal decisions. And again, I'm going to go back to tracking expenses. If you're tracking expenses and you realize how much you're spending on coffee and yet you've convinced yourself you have no way to contribute to charity or no way to contribute to a retirement fund, take a look again. Really know where your money's going and that it matches what you want to do with your life.
Good question. And for those voting, we'll give you about 20 more seconds. Looks like we're about 85% of you voting. I know folks are often reheating dinner or whatnot too. So if you want to get a vote in, you have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you should be able to see the results.
So the percentage of Americans with less than $1,000 in savings, you guys are correct. It was right about 69%. It's interesting. These numbers have hovered fairly consistent. And it was fascinating to me that the pandemic didn't really change a lot of this. There still were people who didn't have savings and still were people who did. So the 45% tends to be sort of representative of who has no savings. So these numbers are have been consistent for several years in that less than $1,000 available to them in a crunch, and that $1,000 mark is really helpful. It helps often with an insurance deductible. It's often at least pretty close to your rent. Having that $1,000, $1,200 tucked away is incredibly helpful for people. And then the reason I asked this group is that I could not find this data. So I asked you, this group, and it looks like 78% could cover in this group an unexpected expense, but we certainly have people that wouldn't be able to cover that much of a hiccup in their life. So thanks, you're helping me with research that I can't seem to find anywhere online, and most of that is because of the pandemic. All the things that were rolling along through 2016, 17, 18, 19 blew up in 2020, and the data is just not there. So thank you for answering that question. Hey, average interest rate on cards is about 19%. The higher interest rate cards usually come for those people who are in a rewards program. So some things to watch for there. Good credit. You might be able to get an interest rate, just a normal credit card for the 10 or 12%. But 19% is painful if that's how you have to cover an emergency in your life. So that's why we're talking savings.
I was going to say that one hurts a little bit. And we did have someone say that they listened to Dave Ramsey speak one time, and he said they shouldn't be called credit cards. They should be called debt cards. Just had to add that in. I smile a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I hurt thinking about 19%.
Yeah. And I don't want people to be afraid of credit cards. They can be useful. They can be a tool in your arsenal. And there's many situations where a credit card is extremely helpful, but we have to be smart with them. We don't want to be afraid of them, but we don't want to be ignorant about them either. And this is the case where, that interest rate is painful. Very, very painful if you can't pay that off every month. So the pandemic has affected people unequally, and we definitely see, like I said earlier, tons of people are saving more than they've ever saved before, and on the other hand, people have wiped out their savings trying to get by. So it's been a frustrating situation for a lot of people. So everybody needs emergency savings. I wonder if you've heard this, you should have 3 months of expenses set aside. If you've ever looked at that number and you're starting from zero, it is super spooky. And so please pick a more manageable number to start with to build your savings. We often suggest $1,000 or $1,200 to be saved in a year. That's manageable for most people. You can run the numbers. If you're going to have $1,200 in a year and you get paid bi-weekly, it's $46 a paycheck. Is there any way you can set aside $46 a paycheck? You'll have $1,200 in a year. If there's 2 of you in the household, it's only $23 per person per month, and you've got $1,200 set aside at the end of the year. Those amounts will see you through some real life challenges. And then your goal is to increase it, eventually getting to that 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside. That's a fabulous goal, but it's a giant scary number if you're starting from zero. So sometimes people create special funds instead of just having a bucket of emergency money. They know the car needs to be replaced. They know they're going to need tires. They know the holidays are coming. There is a wedding coming up that they absolutely want to be on that Mexico beach for. So they're setting aside money in special buckets, special funds to hit those goals in addition to their emergency savings. Where are you going to keep your money? I wish I could tell you that you would earn boatloads of money on your savings by coming to Canvas Credit Union. I will tell you that we pay well above some other places for sure. I just looked at numbers today, but savings rates in general right now aren't very good. Loan rates are great, but savings rates are not so great. So you should shop around. Did you know that banks and credit unions post their savings rates on their websites? So go to if you're considering the bank down the street, the credit union around the corner, hopefully Canvas, get online and look at the savings rates. See how much you can earn with the money that you've set aside in your savings account. So a couple great ways to go about that. If anybody has questions about that, I'd be happy to talk about the different kinds of accounts and how they're set up. Again, put that in chat. We'll be sure to talk about savings options when we get to the end. Money markets, CDs, why you'd pick one or the other, reverse tier, what's going on with all those kinds of accounts.
And I will say there are a handful of questions in chat. We will get to them. So I know that there's been a couple hanging out, but they're a little bit scattered. So let's get through this slide and then we'll bounce back and forth if you all hang in there for one more minute.
That would be great. And then because our next things are specific tips after this, so we can take questions before we move to specific tips. So how do you save money? The best way is to pay yourself first. If you're not familiar with that concept, it means that on payday, on the day that money comes into your life, you move some to savings, preferably automatically. But if you get money in, that same day, money should go to savings. So before you pay rent, before you buy groceries, before you make the car payment, pay yourself. Put that money over in savings. There's so many automated ways to do that now. Again, at the end, if you have questions about that, we can talk about that. But it's so easy to set it up and not have to think about it. And boom, it's gone. It's in savings. It's building. It's happening. It's doing what you want. Your peace of mind is growing. Another savings tip is, related to dividing that into general fund. You just have a single bucket of money, or do you break it up into specific needs? Sometimes people want a separate account. They don't want to see those savings dollars when they sign into their spending account. So if your checking account is your spending account, and if you're going to sign in and see your savings at the same time and it's going to tempt you, consider putting the savings at a different place. For a lot of people, that works really well. And then if you have something coming up, a tax refund, you know that a loan is going to get paid off. Have a plan. What am I going to do with this chunk of money that's opening up in my life? Okay, saving it might be part of it, paying down debt, but have a plan for what you want to do with that chunk of money that's going to come available. Okay, so we're going to move on to some particular savings tips, but yeah, let's see what questions are.
All right, we're going to bounce around a little bit. The first one is back to retirement funds. This person is almost 40. What amount do you think they should have in a retirement fund at this point?
I have no idea. It's such a personal decision. Do you want to live like a prince? Do you want to live exactly the way you've been living while you've been earning income? Are you looking for a simpler lifestyle? Are you going to move to Belize? This is a very personal answer. If you do not have an advisor you work with, please connect with me afterwards, and I will turn you on to some great guys who who can help you with that, but it's such a personal decision. And yeah, without digging deep into your own life, and I don't think we want to do that here.
And I'm guessing it's going to be the same answer for this question, so I'm going to read it next. Pretend there's no Social Security when this person retires in 30 years. How much would be nice to have in retirement?
Yeah,
Same question.
it's going to be the same thing, but yes, if you're 30 years away from retirement, you are really smart to be concerned about Social Security. So in the old days, people retired and they had a pension or they had Social Security, and that pretty much sort of took care of things. Those days are gone. We need our personal money. We need whatever system, pension, Social Security, 401 is available. And we have to have all the buckets working together, because we can't count on those social programs going forward. And that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother session. And don't be super scared, but you're really smart to be thinking about it.
Okay, switching directions again. Would you recommend Dave Ramsey's financial advice?
I have the deepest respect for Dave Ramsey's financial advice, with the exception of some of his credit counseling. I also am not a fan of debt, but I am not afraid of debt. I am not a fan of getting in over your heads on credit cards, but I'm not afraid of credit cards. And I haven't kept touch with Dave Ramsey in the last, say, 3 years to know if he has changed any of his philosophies on those things.
I am not overly familiar with him, but I will say I get the privilege to work with a number of young alumni who do really like his financial advice. He's a name that we hear a lot. So if that's helpful at all.
The vast majority of his stuff is rock solid.
Perfect. Along those lines, does having low debt on your credit card help your credit score? I've heard that a few times.
Are we doing a credit score class?
I was about to say, I was going to let you answer the question. A quick plug for those of you who are interested in sticking with this series. April 14th, we are doing an entire class on credit scores, and I will pop that in the chat. Just like that, this one, it is free. It is hosted by Nancy and Canvas Credit Union in partnership with the Alumni Association. I'm biased, but it is one of my favorite ones we do in the series. So if you really want to dive into your credit score and credit cards and debt, that's a good class.
Yeah, in general, the thing with credit cards or with credit and credit scores, you don't have to carry a balance to have good credit. There's no reason to carry a credit card balance. Pay it in full if you possibly can. So I hope that answered the question at least partially. No reason to carry debt month to month on a credit card. It will do zero for your score, and it will cost you money.
And I also just want to quickly add in, for those of you who registered through this course through Canvas Credit Union and not the Alumni Association, you are welcome at any and all Alumni Association programs. I think that's one of the beautiful things about this partnership. So I know that it's a different website and maybe a different source for information, but we do hope you'll continue to join us. So just wanted to put that plug in as well in case it caused any confusion. Next question, we're switching lanes again. We have about 3 more before we move on. It says 25 times your yearly spending saved for retirement is the proven rule to be safe, I have heard. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm not an investment advisor. And again, everything related to retirement is such a personal decision. How do you want to live in retirement? What are your goals? Just something that's right for you could be horribly wrong for your neighbor. Yeah, I'll stay away from any specific advice on that one.
Perfect. I hear a current generalization for retirement income is to be able to fund yourself at 75% of your salary. So that's a tip from another attendee. I don't know if you want to weigh in at all.
It's just the same thing. Who are you? What's your lifestyle? What's your possibilities?
Mhm.
If you're 60 years old and haven't saved for retirement, I'm sorry, that goal that just got, those couple goals that got mentioned, ooh, not going to happen.
Mhm. And I think that is it. Thank you all for such great participation in the chat. I will pop in the web address for the rest of this series, as well as all Alumni Association events. A couple of you have asked that question, and do continue to ask any financial questions you have as well. We'll keep bugging Nancy to get those answered.
And one of the topics we have coming up is investment basics.
Yes. So, without marketing too much, if you do want to know what the whole series looks like, it'll be credit scores in April, home buying in June, student loans in August, and investing in October.
And then we have a couple surprises thrown in, I think.
We do. And we also will send out a survey at the end of this that asks for your recommendations. So this entire year's series was based off of feedback from folks who attended last year. If you are really heart set on seeing something that's not being offered, or if you have follow-up questions, that survey is your place to pop in any and all thoughts, ideas, questions, and we'll either follow up with you individually, or you'll see it hopefully on the engagement calendar. So just a plug to fill out the survey.
So we were talking about saving money. I just want to throw out some ideas on saving on your food budget. I bet you've seen these things before. I bet you've heard them before. I'm only going to highlight a couple of them. Planning your meals, making a list, shopping with a list. And I'll tell you that people right now are telling me that when they shop online at home and then go pick it up in the parking lot, they are saving so much money because there's no impulse purchases. They are forced to create menus and forced to create grocery lists. So my huge takeaway on the grocery expenses is menu planning and sticking to your list. But okay. Eating out is super expensive. Hey, no big surprise, huh? And then how many of us have during the pandemic learned that maybe we can survive on less of eating out? I don't know what your story is. I don't know how much you spend on that. And if you're really comfortable with that amount and we want to support our local businesses, just be very aware of what you're spending. I will tell you that years and years and years ago, I taught this class. There was somebody who said they spent $14,000 a year eating out. The only way they knew that was for some reason they started tracking their spending, looked at this number and they were shocked. And it wasn't what this person wanted to do with $14,000. So we want to have fun. We want to eat out. Yes, this includes coffee. There's a line item on the slide about how much coffee costs us. We just need to be smart. If we're tracking our spending, we'll know if we're okay with this. We'll know if we're okay with coffee, with how much we're spending on eating out. There's some tips there to save on when you're eating out. And don't forget, these slides are coming your way. Another thing that happened with COVID is we learned we could have entertainment for less. So I don't know if you developed any new habits around entertainment that you can carry forward. I personally love libraries. They are the source of so much information. Did you know that in Fort Collins anyway, they have GoPros and museum passes and parks passes and cake pans, and it's amazing what you can check out from the library. So explore that option. If you're not familiar with libraries, explore what they can offer you. Being outside, we learned, was awesome to the detriment of some of our natural areas. Most people think of parks and trails. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to suggest you consider going to the cemetery. The cemetery is quiet, peaceful, beautiful. You can hear the birds. You can contemplate history. Just another option for you if the trailhead is too busy. The cemeteries usually are not. And if you're going to spend money on entertainment, keep in mind all those passes and discounts and cheaper time of day to go. We need to get back to supporting entertainment, sports. museums. We need to get back to supporting these things as soon as we can, but look for the most financially savvy way to do that. If it's an annual pass or it's going at a cheaper time of day, I don't know. But if you're going to spend money on entertainment, try to do it for less. Okay. And then finally, look for memberships that you aren't using or that are duplicates. Do you have 3 streaming services and you could get by with 1? Just some ideas on cutting back on how much we're spending on entertainment. I'm hoping to get to some more questions, so I want to wrap up by challenging you to take one of these action steps. If you remember when we started about budgeting, the benefits of budgeting are control over your money, peace of mind, helping you to achieve a goal, skills if you run into a crisis, the ability to tell your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. It can help with communication in a relationship, and it avoids that scary unknown. It's the truth. It's what we've got to work with. Having emergency savings is just such a smart financial move. My challenge is going to be to have you act on something we've talked about today, track your spending, know what your money's doing. Get a savings account open, get a direct payment going to it on payday. And then we talk through some savings tips, implement something. Take one more step to save a little money when you spend your money. For those of you who are with CSU or Canvas, either one, Liz is one of our amazing business development reps. Her email's there. If you have questions about some things, what I'm about to talk about, I think on the restructuring the debt, some things like that, you can contact Liz and she'll be able to get you steered to the right product or the right department to make things happen. I think that's it on the formal presentation. So what questions do we still have hanging out there?
We don't have questions, but do consider giving us more questions if you have them. In the interim, while you type out questions, I do just want to say one more huge thanks for spending your time with us tonight. I know these days on the computer get long, and we so value your time and your attention. I also want to thank our CSU Alumni Association members one more time, as well as Canvas Credit Union. Without members and Canvas, this program and the rest of the series would not be possible. And then I just want to note that I did go ahead and pop the survey in the chat. If you fill out the survey, we'll enter you in to get a little mail prize. They're car coasters, they're cute. Little Rams. But it's also your chance to let us know what you think went well, what you'd like to see done differently, any programming suggestions you have for the future, and if you would like to receive follow-up that you didn't already pop in the chat. So questions around like debt refinancing, how do I contact Liz or Nancy? Can you send me a map of Canvas branches? Is the Alumni Center open? Really, any question that you have, please do put in the additional comments section of that survey and we can follow up with you individually. So with that, a huge thank you. Any remaining questions, financial related, that you want answered before you log off tonight, I'm just going to kind of popcorn read those from the chat. But thank you, take care of yourselves, and go Rams.
Yeah. So can I hit on that restructuring thing? With borrowing money and paying it back, there are multiple ways to go about it. So if you have a credit card debt, it's possible that we could change that over to a car loan and you would save tremendous amounts of money on the interest that you're paying. Some other options are to, if you're having trouble with your month, you need more money in your month and you have a car loan right now, maybe we can restructure it, stretch it out so that the payment drops. It's going to have some other effects on your finances, but if the crisis is to have more money in your month right now, maybe that's the right answer. So that's just a couple of options. Sometimes people get into loans when their credit score is low. Their credit score has improved. Refinancing at a better interest rate is going to help you in a couple of different ways. So there are lots of reasons why you would want to examine your debt and see if there isn't a better solution. Okay. All right. Got that one out of the way. What else?
Good info though. I'm glad we started with that one. So this is kind of a fun one. Where should they be putting savings money? Savings account, dresser drawer, investment option that personally works. This person says they save money but don't know where to put it.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking. Again, search your websites for credit unions and banks and find the best interest rate that's paying out there, but I'll make some distinctions. A basic savings account is paying almost nothing. You might as well put it in the shoebox, except of course it won't burn up at the credit union and it'll burn up in your shoebox. But basic savings rate is pretty low. The next concept that pays more above that is usually a money market account. This is not tied to the stock market. This is just a money market account. Usually has a higher minimum balance to put in, but you can take money in and out as often as you want. There's no limit on that, and it pays a little more interest. The next level up in earnings is usually a certificate of deposit. And the agreement there is that you will put this money on deposit and leave it there for a certain time. So a 12-month certificate of deposit. And it's going to pay more interest than a savings account, usually more than a money market. And the longer the certificate of deposit term, the higher the interest rate. So if you get a 12-month CD, it'll pay X in interest earnings. If you get a 24-month CD, it will pay more. Okay, so those are some common things. The one I really want to plug right now is something called reverse tier savings. And it's paying 2.75% on the first $2,000 that you deposit. This is a very high interest rate for the moment. And it's paying it on the lower sum of money. When you add to that account and you get above $2,000, the earnings you start to receive are actually smaller. So it's a reward those people who are getting going kind of account. We are not the only ones who have that. Again, do your research, find out what's a good fit for you. As far as, but there are options that earn more than a basic savings account.
Awesome. Thank you. Besides not getting a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, how can you get around not paying the 0.5% fee now being added to refinancing?
So home buying is coming up.
I was like, we're going to just jump everywhere tonight.
Yeah, so, okay, so when we talk about mortgage lending, there's a couple important things. One is that every lender approaches things differently. So interest rates and fees and how those things are set up are different with every lender. There are some rules, of course, FHA, those kind of things have some rules with them. But the cool thing about mortgage lending is there is a product for virtually everyone. So there are some mortgage loans that are designed for people who are just getting started. They have a low credit score. They don't have much money down. Then there are other loans that are for people who have great credit and they're going to put down a chunk of money. We have a loan that requires 0 down payment.
And I will say, I will make sure you receive this in your follow-up communications. Some of these classes we've done before, so home buying is one that we have recorded if you would like to watch the home buying presentation. They do shift and change, so Nancy always is updating and adding new information, and certainly attending live is great because you can ask questions. But if you need more information before the home buying class, the CSU Alumni Association YouTube page, you just youtube.com, search CSU Alumni Association, does have past webinars recorded and home buying is on there, as is credit scores, I believe. So certainly check those out as resources while you wait for upcoming classes too. But if that's any help, I will make that plug. Going to jump to student loans next. Do you have any tips for student loan debt besides consolidation?
Yeah, so it depends on your situation. We do a whole student loan class coming up. Right now, we're in deferment. So you have until the end of this month that you don't have to pay if it's a struggle in your month. Um, the challenge, it depends on what your challenge is. If your motivation is to get out of debt quickly and get rid of this thing, then I would just aggressively pay ahead on it. The chances of finding a loan product at a lower interest rate than your current loan depends on when you took out the loan. So right now, getting a student loan is a really low interest rate. A few years ago, it was much higher. So it's going to be a personal situation on whether you can find a loan rate lower than what your current situation is. Staying in the federal system gets you some privileges and benefits that being in the private system won't have. So sometimes it's worth it to stick with the federal loan product because you might get forbearance or deferment, or like right now, there's nothing due. Public service loan forgiveness, oh my gosh, it's a huge topic. So yeah, I think my email is going to go out in that evaluation, and you're welcome to email me directly with some more questions. And we can steer you to some counselors for student loans specifically. Sorry, that's a painful one.
And then the next question back to home loans, is there MPI for the 0% down home loan?
No. Oh, well.
And for those, Nancy, who are unfamiliar with the term MPI, could you just give a quick overview about what that is too? I know many of our young alumni haven't purchased homes yet, so.
Yeah, so mortgage insurance protection, private mortgage insurance, PMI, MIP, it's mortgage insurance, it protects the lender. So, I can't, that is a fabulous question, and email me directly that question or put in chat who you are, and I will find out if the 100% loan requires mortgage insurance. It does have a credit score requirement. You have to have good credit. And I believe there's a savings requirement. You'll have to have some money, show that you have some money in savings. But I spoke too soon when I said that MIP wasn't part of it. So let me verify that for you. Or you can look on our website.
Awesome. What amazing questions all. I think we have gotten through any questions that were in the chat. I've also written down names and contact info for folks who did request follow-up, and we'll make sure to check the surveys as well. I know we're slightly past 7, so thank you for hanging in there with us. If you have any last minute questions, we'll stick around for a bit. But one last huge thank you, and go Rams.
Yeah. Thank you so much, people, for great participation. Love it.